Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for being a part of this. All right, let's get to it, man. First off, how you feeling?
It's good to be here. It's a special day.
Yeah, man, like, I'm super like, well, I'll start the origin story. I think for me, you first got on my radar because of my good late friend Virgil. I had seen he had used your music for Soundscape in the fashion show.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? We could talk about start or whatever in a little bit, but how did that happen?
No, that's a crazy story, and of course, long live Virgil, great legend. What actually happened was, me being from Leicester, I actually went to shoot my first ever music video in London, and I had a friend called Elan, and we had been like pen pals. So I know quite. I started making music in COVID, so I was just in my house really. Networking wasn't even an option unless it was on social media. But I met Elan, and I met him for the first time when I was shooting this music video, and he took me to this bridge in London that I'd never seen to shoot at. And we were just talking for so long, and then he just hit me out of the blue and was like, whilst I was working my full-time job at the time whilst I was studying, and he was just like, look, I played your music for the team at LV. It's an advert for Virgil, and he's messing with it. And I remember just being at work, I was like, this is a joke. And then we just kept talking, and then I remember seeing it live or happen, and I was always told that Virgil was loving my music and stuff, and just seeing it happen was just crazy, because me, where I'm from, Leicester, it's like very far from what I used to think.
Yeah.
And so it's only been like for people like yourselves and many other amazing, good creators that have obviously made it possible, like shown us that it's possible to just come from where you're from. And so, yeah, that all started with Drew Mutual friends at the time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then Lester, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain, like, obviously from America, Chicago, I guess I don't realize how big England and like how many cities, and like, can you explain where you're from, what separates from other cities?
So Leicester is in the East Midlands, small compared to London, of course. And I mean, the UK compared to the States, we don't compare in size. But in terms of the differences of Leicester and like major cities and stuff, it's very small. It's very small, but at the same time, it's cozy and everyone really knows each other. But like, it's just it's what actually was voted as one of the most diverse cities in the UK. So that's actually pretty crazy. But yeah, small disconnect, but for me, it's been my mission to actually try to connect the dots that some people think are pretty impossible, because nothing's impossible. You just gotta go for it. It's the passion that drives you, you know what I'm saying?
And then like and I'm only asking you because the more I come out here, the more I've had talk with most of my friends, like, and oftentimes they say I'm from Nigeria or I'm from Ghana. I started doing more research on my background and where I'm from, coming out here more in London, because I talked to so many friends. They'd be like, "Yo, Americans, y'all don't know where y'all from," and it's sometimes it's so deep. But I often love how like black people from out here are always like really loud and proud about where they're from. So
You have to be, yeah.
where are you? Your family from?
So I'm Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Zimbabwe. I was born in Zimbabwe, raised in the UK. And I've actually not been back, but my family stem from both Zimbabwe and South Africa, which I went back for the first time last year, November, which is crazy. But I've always tried to make it so important to just like to stay tapped in with my roots and where I was raised, because you never want to lose your identity. Identity is crucial to you. It helps you. Anything you make stems from your identity, and that's what will attract people and have them attracted to you and your work.
Yeah. And then, like, as far as like your family background and everything, what you do in your career. Well, first off, you just started rapping.
Yeah.
What, 3 years ago?
Yes.
That's crazy. Yes. You usually don't hear like that. Like, this wasn't something that you thought you were gonna be doing like when you was a kid.
No, my original aspirations was to be a basketball player. But then we went into COVID. And then with COVID happening, of course, it's a team sport. You couldn't train or anything. I remember just thinking to myself, what I was studying at the time, I was only studying on side of sports. And I remember being like, I couldn't do this. This is not for me. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, I've always loved expressing myself. And I remember, like, I've always been a person of just trial and error. And I remember it was COVID. I thought to myself, everyone has to be at home. You have to listen, surely. And thank God people listen, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And then I saw something, I don't know how far along in like your discography, but Local's MVP, Local MVP.
Yeah.
It's a cold ass name. Like
Chili.
what like inspired that name? That was your first album?
That was my first EP. So
Got it.
yeah, that was my first EP, and again at the same time, that just came from the stemming of my sports mentality and my love for basketball. You know, that's where the MVP came, most valuable player. But then for me, the number one thing, again, like I was saying, Leicester's it's a small city. Everyone tends to grow up knowing each other. And for me, it was just like, I've always loved being local, and me playing basketball is what had me on everyone in the city's radar. So it's kind of like, oh, you know, small town, oh, he plays basketball. So I just thought, you know, local MVP is kind of like self-explanatory, and I just felt it was like relatable to like so many other people, because
Sure.
it's like you give me an MVP in whatever you do, whether you're a chef, you're a poet, you know, you're a teacher, like you can be like the most valuable in whatever that is you're doing to yourself. And for me, it was like, no, I hadn't seen anyone that was like kind of proud to be all that, but locally. It's always kind of, the mindset is always like, okay, if I'm gonna be the best, I have to be international. Because it's like, yo, first you gotta start what's around you, and forever never forget that, because that's also important as much as you go international. So for me,
That's like key for
Yeah.
me. I think nowadays I try to correct publications when they say Chicago-based brand, because at this point it's like you could take the Chicago out sometimes, but I'm a firm believer of you have to make sure that you can make it in your hometown. Like you get that hometown support, you're gonna be good forever.
100%.
I think Chicagoans have watched me like come up since I was a teenager, so it's like it wasn't like overnight success. They seen the hard work that I put in, so it's like I could be anywhere around the world, but coming home is like I feel like the mayor. You know what I mean? And I put in that hard work.
It's love, for real.
That was like, well, I gotta get that tattooed on me. That shit sound fire.
For real.
Yeah.
For real.
And then your music. Can you describe like? Man, I'm so embarrassed, bro. I was out here for, and I'm like being as honest as possible. And I love like hip hop, right? And rap.
Yeah.
But I was at Fashion Week last month. And somebody bombarded me. I don't want to say his name. That it's like one of those publications that be like, yo, they catch you when you're a little drunk. And be like, yo, top 5 UK artists. And I was like, bro, I don't even know what to say. I think, man, like I started to, I think because of me being in Chicago and like the origins, I would say, of drill music.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when the last few years I kind of tapped out because I'm getting a little old. I started to feel like a lot of things sound the same. What I was drawn to your music because there's like a vibe. Your music sounds like the cool house party. You know what I'm saying? What was some of the music that was inspired by like coming up?
For me, I feel like,
because it's different. Your music like sounds different from like
it's a blend.
What like you know what I'm saying? Like it just hit different. The beats y'all pick, whatever. It's like everything is like a vibe.
Yeah. For me, growing up, I wouldn't say I came from a musical family, but you know, my parents loved gospel, so I grew up in a Christian household. So my mom loved gospel and jazz. My brother went through his phases, and he was straight up into the rap. He got me into that, you know, like the straight hip hop. But at the same time, I always had an interest in jazz. And I'll be real, I didn't always understand it, but for some reason, I always felt like I understood the feeling of the sound of it. You know, I don't know if anyone relates to that, and I remember just, I guess subconsciously, even though in my upbringing in the UK, I went through phases of sonical sounds, even trying to find my own sound. You know, you go to school, you know, you hear what's cool, what your friends like listening to and stuff. But then I kept experimenting and then I started to realize that there was just core sounds that stuck with me. And I was like, when I leave my friends or when I go home, I'm still listening to this and I enjoy it. And for me, I guess subconsciously, I just ended up finding myself blending rap, R&B, and jazz in one. And I was like, this sounds like my personality. It's chilled, laid back, lavish, and also lovable to many other people. You don't have to be from this to understand, but it's like, it's the substance that like sonically comes to you, you know what I'm saying? And for me, that's what kind of made my genre. But I guess for me, it's just like, it's always just, music to me is just expressing myself for real. You know, it's not really it's not really like, oh, I want to be this person. I want this person to see me as. It's kind of just like my little diary. Yeah. So, for example, for Local MVP, Champagne Shots, like I literally just wrote that song about when I was drinking with my friends in our house for a birthday, and we ran out of everything. We just had champagne and shot glasses, bro. You know, it's like I'm kind of just telling you my day, and people seem to relate and put it into their own lives, and that's what makes it amazing to me. Because like, oh wow, I never really even thought of my song or this the way you see it.
And I think again, just knowing about, I was reading this interview and it said you enjoy being a wild card. I think ultimately I'm like attracted to artists that like know their worth, you know, different, stick out. What do you mean by you enjoy being a wild card though? And that like interview said that. What do you mean by that?
Enjoying being a wild card, for me, I enjoy sticking out. Like, it's obviously, we live in a day and age where it's, you know, it's cool to be cool, but what is cool? That's the question I always used to find myself asking, like, what is cool if everyone is kind of the same, you know what I'm saying? And for me, it was like, just being a little different. It started with small, then it gets to, you know, wearing the loud colors, you know, these amazing shoes, and I was like, you know, I love this feeling, like, and for me, it's just like expressing myself. If you're the same as everyone else, it's kind of like, what has this person actually got to tell the next person about you? Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like, it's like all of them. It's like, for me, I just enjoy being different, because to me, uniqueness is beautiful to me. Yeah.
Man, how did you connect with New Balance? How did that journey happen with you?
This journey it actually started a couple years before it even officially started, and I feel like it was just so organic and natural. It was in my early stages of making music. It was coming out of COVID. I'm coming to London. I'm visiting London. Everyone's starting to come outside, and I was doing I remember having a shoot with New Balance via JD, and I remember just being like, wait, New Balance want to do something with me? I think this is crazy. And then I remember even just from that point, the love and the respect that I felt I was getting from the whole brand, everyone I was working at the brand, it was like, it didn't feel like a brand. It felt like friends whenever I was doing stuff with New Balance. And from that point on, we kept doing shoots to the point I was wearing more and more New Balance, and then to the point I was still to this day, every day New Balance, I was like, yo, this is love for real. Yeah. Because it all happened, as much as I knew, I didn't see it at the time. It was kind of like, it was organic. Yeah. And I just feel like,
I think they do a really good job of like curating like talent. That's why it's 100%. Easy for me to like work with and talk to different people from around the world. Because sometimes, especially the more I travel, you just realize that how we connected. Like when we was just eating, I like to ask people what do you think when you hear Chicago, even if some stuff is negative, what do you think about when you hear Chicago?
When I hear Chicago, I'm gonna be so real. The first thing that comes to my mind is like the view, the scenes, and that actually kind of stems from 2K. I like me playing basketball again. Like I said, I used to love basketball, and of course, you know, you have a lot of goats from Chicago too. Yeah. So Chicago is very much on the map, and to know obviously you guys obviously started drill. We're seeing how drill's inspired so many people and changed the game. Like it's in the UK now. We now have how many different styles of drill. Yeah. But it all stands for it. But same time, sports, and I kind of just, you know, shout out. Yeah, there's so much in Chicago, bro. I love Chicago. Of course, there's the positives and negatives, but I always see there's positives and negatives to every place. Yeah. It's all perspective and how you work with it.
I thought it was sweet. I mean, sometimes it's tough because I think sometimes we travel abroad and you, on both sides of the fence, you don't realize, like, you can't put your guard down wherever you at. I was in London like a year ago. Yeah. And we were just chilling, so when my friend watch got stolen, like just, and sometimes I remind, like, damn, it's just like the crib. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes it's just, it's really good to travel and just, I guess, understand how the world works and just like, for sure. I think that's why it's important for us to bring these conversations and do things like worldwide, because it's just like good to have these open conversations and just be about community, you know? Yeah. What is any cities? I know you've been to New York, you've been to LA.
I've been to.
That's LA. All y'all. Every time y'all just go to New York or LA, there's no New Orleans or Houston.
You know, I really want to go to New Orleans because I actually even whilst I was in LA, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I met quite a few people. But no, I've only been to LA so far and New York. But there's so many places on my hit list because I'm a very curious person. Whatever, I have an addictive personality. If I like something or have an interest in something, I deep search and deep dive into everything. And even just like on music, like I understand. Well, you know, not as much as you. I'm not there, but I feel like I have a good understanding on like, you know, the different sonics and different sounds. You know, every state has its own style and music and stuff. And you know, even
I was just speaking on my bad to cut you. I was just speaking on it actually because I don't know. That's a good point. If you were in Houston, you might go to a club in Houston and it's completely a different type of like rap music.
Yeah.
Like it's usually that set where like they stop playing all the hits and then it's just like all the music from that area. It's like New Orleans, Houston, Atlanta, like they all like even Chicago. I think that is the cool thing. I guess I didn't realize that with the States. It's really regional. It's really regional.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't really know off the top of my head any other places that have it as consistent as the different sounds and styles in the States. Because obviously you can say you guys have it in music, but you guys even have it up to hairstyles. Like, you know, like you have like the Florida dreads and stuff. So I definitely find that unique, and that's also cool because I feel like you guys have a lot of wild cards in the States. You know what I'm saying?
But is it like that out here where you can see how somebody is dressed or how their hairstyle is, and you kind of can know what city they're from?
Kind of, but really and truly, no. It's not the same. I feel like in the UK it's a bit different. It's kind of just like there's different categories. I feel like there's different categories. It's not really where you're from, but it's kind of like you can tell the vibe from the fit type of thing. Yeah, you have that type of. It's like, oh, okay. You can see what type of music to listen to. You're like, okay. But then we do have the wild cards where someone will completely shock you because someone might look at me and be like, yeah, definitely this. I'm like, well, actually, no. I actually enjoy hot drinks and going to cafes, and they're like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's not much similar to like the US, but in our own ways, we definitely have our own different styles and tastes for sure.
Definitely, and I guess this try to be my second or third question, but like, you sound like you blew up overnight. I mean, no, not saying that you don't work hard.
I know what you mean.
But what was that like moment? You know what I'm saying? From starting during the pandemic, which you hear those stories where it seemed like the pandemic changed a lot of people's lives for better or worse, but you use that time to like just kind of figure out what you want to be or do in life, even if it came by mistake. But what was like that big moment where you was like, oh, this is my career? I think that's the cool thing about being a creator. Like sometimes it takes different things in life to realize, oh, this is my job. You know what I mean? I think for me, I had a brand, and I had a real job, and I got fired from that job. And it was like, I told myself, this is the last time I'm ever gonna get fired. And that was like when I decided to take my brand serious, So I'm always curious about what was that moment where you was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life, and I'm good at it.
Ooh, for me, well, firstly, I just want to say everything you're doing is amazing. It's inspiring for me personally, and I'm pretty sure it's inspiring for everyone that's here today.
Thank you.
Seeing you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then secondly, you mentioned you had a real job. Your job is even realer now.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's secondly.
Right. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that.
But I guess going into me and find out when it got serious, I feel like for me, I've had reoccurring scenarios and events that have always brought me back to me like, oh. But it's like, so it was the first time I'll say probably when I was still at uni. So I was still at uni. I'm still on a gap year now. Yeah. but no plan to return. But I was at uni, and I remember I'll be telling. So in my household, it's traditional. You got to get your school grades. You got to study and stuff. And my mom and dad, both of them was like, yo, you got to study. You have to study, legit. So I was like, okay, cool. But deep down, I was like, I can't. No joke, I could not do this. And when it got serious, I remember this was still COVID, I was having calls with labels and stuff. And I remember I'll be telling my mom would be like, oh, but it's like that. I'm like, you don't believe me, do you? You don't believe me. So I started taking Zoom calls with my mom in the room doing her work. Yeah. And I'll put the volume up. And then it wasn't until she heard the first price tag and then she was like, I remember just seeing her look at me like, how many zeros was on the end of that? And I was like, and I remember even seeing her reaction, as much as I was on the call, but it was seeing her reaction. And, you know, see my mom, like, happy, because obviously, you know, I love my mom. We all love our mothers, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I was like, okay, this is crazy. And then that was like, I have to go hard. But at the same time, that was like, that's still early days. But it wasn't until I was missing my lectures. And then I was like, okay, this is now serious, because I miss my lectures. But then I'm balancing the two, and I'm like, I'm expressing myself and just being myself. And this is happening. And then I'm following, you know, what we all are taught is, well, I wouldn't say education is definitely not bad, but it's the approach to, some people see education as in, this is the only way to then do this, and then do that, and then do this, and do that. And I remember it being like, balancing the two, I'm like, whoa, well, if I'm doing the maths already, it's the music. But then coming to that, and I don't want to seem like I'm just, you know, like, naming new bands, but for honest, my real reason, I was talking to new bands and doing the work I was doing with the whole shoe company. That was insane for me, because then going back to me wanting to be in sports, playing basketball, you know how serious a shoe, like, you know, talking shoes is.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh, I'm not an athlete anymore, which I wanted to be, and I'm wearing shoes that I like for free. And I was like, this is serious. This is crazy. Oh, this is crazy. So yeah. Shout out to every single person that's, you know, that's helped elevate, and especially MB for, you know, having a style differently.
Yeah, that's so funny about moms too.
Yeah.
When the first few years of my business, still kind of now, my business was registered to my parents' address, just because I thought I was going to be moving around offices too much.
Yeah.
So this is a stage where my mom used to kind of open up my mail still, even though I was like far removed from living at home. And she's seen a check I got from a brand.
Yeah.
She was, oh, this is actually a real job, you know? So I think sometimes it's kind of cool to, and I was saying this before in the last conversation, like, I think your peers, you know, brother, sister, but like your siblings, and I mean, your mom and dad, sometimes that's like, people don't know we work hard to make sure that they can understand what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. And then like last, man, like, where do you see, you young as hell, like, where do you see your career going, and what are some things you're trying to do?
For me, I always say I see it going far, which is obviously, with context being, I don't like putting limits on anything, because we surprise ourselves, so we surprise everyone as we go on. And just for all of you, like, I'm pretty sure you've all done something on a regular, and you're like, wait, that was me. I did this. This is really good. But for me, it's like, I really just want to inspire or motivate a whole lot of other people that come from, you know, maybe not the major cities, or have always came up with all the resources that other people have had. Because for me, again, I always, like, I never want to forget, but I don't think I ever will. But like, being from Leicester, and at one point I used to have the mentality of like, oh, but I'm not from London, and this is for music. And now I'm just like, wait. Whoever's not from these places or doesn't have this, you should take that or use it to your advantage. Because if anything, not having something or XYZ that someone else has, it will drive you to think in ways that those people won't even think, because they got that stuff, you know what I'm saying? So it's use to your advantage. And for me, it's just, I just want to please my family and my kids, but mainly myself, because for me, it's like, I didn't predict any of this. But music is has such a deep place for me in my heart, and, you know, art, fashion. I just want to create for the sake of loving what I create, not create for the sake of I have to create. That's the thing for me.
Because when it gets like that, it becomes
then you're not creating.
Exactly.
You gotta create, right? Yeah.
Exactly. I hear that. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for being a part of this.